Fantastic. We're all up on stage and looking forward to the last interactive session. Sven, if you could again share the questions, this is fantastic. And without any further discussion, this last couple of people coming in, we will start with some of your questions. And thank you again. Keep coming, or if you want to ask them with the microphone, we still have those microphones in the room. The first question for this afternoon's session is about the cameras. Clayton, I thought people would ask you some questions. So he is, or she is asking where the cameras are installed and how many are installed per farm. So probably difficult to make one rule, but maybe you have a standard or...
I think there's one principle for sure that you can put in place, and that's that you want the cameras everywhere you expect a biosecurity action to happen. If you expect people to remove their shoes at the bench correctly, we need a camera there. If you expect people to load the pigs and have a clean, dirty line with the truck, which every farm does, we need a camera there. Supply entry, we need a camera there. Don't overthink it. Where are things coming into your farm? And where are things going out? So where do you have a line of separation or a clean, dirty line? As a general principle, the less of those you have, the better. If I have 10 areas where people are coming in the farm, that's difficult. It's just more chances for mistakes. If I have 10 areas where supplies come in, guess what? The disinfectant bottle is going to be empty at one of those places. You know what I'm saying? And so try to narrow down the number of access points in your farm. You guys have seen me use the castle example, right? You want to get in a castle? There's one drawbridge, and the best guards in the castle are right there to inspect you. Think of your farm the same way. So most of the farms I work with, each of those entry areas, there's just one. There's one area supplies come in, there's one area people come in, one area we load out the pigs, one area the mortality goes out. So 4 cameras. And then you saw pictures of a camera exterior looking kind of at the parking lot area. Honestly, that is more for physical farm security. That is for when people say, did somebody do this intentionally, you know, or did someone rob our farm? And I won't lie to you, I've seen a video of that one time. There was somebody who was stealing equipment in the middle of the night, and we saw them removing it out of the farm and caught them that way. So those are really the only places we have the cameras. I think we nailed all that down. I would add the Verkada system. The cameras are all wired, and the wires take the data back to a hard drive in the office, and the wires bring power to the camera. So you don't need solar panels, you don't need power. You can put the cameras pretty much anywhere, but you have to run the wire the entire difference. So we hired a professional company for the farms we managed to install the cameras. The first farm, a few of us went out and tried to do it ourselves. We quickly found we're not electricians and we didn't do a good job, and so we just hired professional people to do it at that point.
Yeah, I think the availability of Wi-Fi or internet connection is probably one big challenge for a lot of farms. Yeah,
it's critical. You've got to have internet to get the data reliably in the cloud. If it doesn't go in the cloud, you'll have it. So say the internet's down for a day, the cameras are recording, you just can't access them remotely. So you can do it without great Wi-Fi or consistent Wi-Fi, but you're going to want good Wi-Fi.
I had one experience that I wanted to ask you about, or the panelist, maybe in Denmark even. Frequently the feed bins in the systems I've worked with bind up, right? And so the auger is not picking up the feed. So what do the workers go? They go out with a hammer and bang the bin. How do you avoid, because often they'll just walk out of the barn and back, on the pad around the feed the bin and then come back in.
Yep.
Is that a risk factor? Do you just lock the doors, and how do you prevent that? Because I've with PD in particular, where birds are defecating where the feed is, to me it's a big risk.
So I would tell you, Oliver, I always try to think practically about it and root cause analysis. So why are the workers going outside? Because the feed's hung up. Why? It's going to be different in different situations. Sometimes the angle of the feed line is too steep. And if we improve the angle of the feed line, the feed flows better. Sometimes it's a change in the diet. But if you're a veterinarian, give yourself that homework assignment. If they're going outside, you're practically speaking, they're going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like it is human nature. If they're short on labor that day, if they've got a lot to do, they've got one of these outbreaks going on where they're busy taking care of all the sick pigs, they're going to break the rules if it's the easiest way to do it. So try to fix that problem. I'm not saying you can do it all the time, but that's the first thing I ask myself is we don't want the feed to hang up no matter what. And I'm no expert on feed, but I can talk to the nutritionist. I can talk to experts in that area. I can take pictures, and I can be the extension agent for the farm, for lack of a better term. So that's the first thing that I try to do to try and make that situation better.
Yeah, well, just to add something on that, we have our SPF system, and there's rules about how you do your biosecurity, and actually the veterinarian who is working in that farm is obligated to do an audit on that. But we know we can improve. Actually, what you can experience is that people get a bit lazy. If we don't have that much disease and good health, then people start not
cutting corners.
Yeah, they don't look at the consequences, and we really don't have issues with PED and stuff like that. And then, yeah, the feed is a good example that's something that probably could be a risk factor. Maybe not that much on our PRRS right now, but for other infectious diseases. Yeah. So actually, there is a system, and the veterinarian is actually obligated to do the audit to improve any breaches of external biosecurity.
And you said it, right? The camera is complementary to the audit, and the presence on the farm is not the only option. Yeah. Great, thank you for your answers. We'll go to the second question. It only took us 12 minutes. Hopefully we can answer those next ones quicker. During an outbreak of highly pathogenic PRRS, the sows are experiencing abortions and deaths, and sequencing suggests that the virus is a lineage 1. How should vaccines be used to reduce the impact of the outbreak and quickly minimize economic losses? Daniel, do you want to jump on this one first, or?
Well, from the data we collect from the PRRS outbreak management program back in the US, we get data on this, and based on what we see there, the sooner the better. The sooner they implement the load, close, expose, the quicker they're going to get to that stage of stability, the quicker they're going to get to that stage of getting subclinical, meaning recovering the production losses. So the sooner you can do a whole herd vaccination and then get your gilt planning so that you close the herd, expose the gilts as well, right, with the same vaccine. The sooner you can do that, the sooner you're going to bring the herd back to stable.
So don't wait.
Don't wait.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking the lineage 1 is almost like a trick question, right? It doesn't really matter that it's lineage 1. The intervention is going to be the same, right?
Yeah, the lineage 1 is just going to be more dramatic, right? The more dramatic losses. If you wait a little bit, you can argue that the losses post interventions is going to be a little bit lower, but then that time is ticking, and each week is an additional week that you're shipping out that lineage 1 pigs through grow finish area. So the lineage 1, it's still PRRS virus, but it's going to be more dramatic, right? The losses.
What I have heard, we were talking about this, sometimes in areas where they have not had these strains, the producers decided to actually not risk it and protect the system by actually eliminating that farm, right?
Yep. Yeah, it takes a lot of guts to do that, because there's stories that are heroic. There are also stories where you get halfway through dumping the farm and the next farm next to it breaks. So it should be a consideration. It's really helpful to get to the variant level. So we talk about lineage a lot, and Daniel's right. You know, lineage 1 doesn't tell us enough to do anything unique. But if you see the same lineage as the strain that I put up there, and that's the only farm you have in that area that's impacted, and you have a lot of other breeder farms around it, you have to think about immediate depop. I mean, maybe it's not practical. Maybe you can't do it. Do you have gilts right away to repopulate the farm? Can you get the culls out? In the US, we'd have to get the culls slaughtered. So is there capacity to slaughter those sows? But you need to start asking those questions and think, what is my best plan of attack? And I wish I could tell you there's a black and white answer to that, but it is the definition of it depends. So you've got to think through the pros and cons, act accordingly, understand you're probably going to second guess yourself either way.
Yeah, because there's no control group, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a reason we call what we do practice.
Practice, yeah. The other thing I was going to say on lineage 1, Marcello or Daniel, is, I mean, there's some very mild lineage 1 strains, right, which have caused very moderate disease on farms. So not every lineage 1 is like your case, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And even that one specific strain or variant that Clayton was showing, it doesn't necessarily cause the same level of disease in all farms. So there are other factors that could be influencing the expression of the disease. It's just, on average, right now, that strain in the US is very, very bad.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing a graph that you guys produced where you were looking at variants and the severity of the breaks, and there was quite a bit of variability within.
Right, yeah. Like Marcelo says, right, it's different if you get the same super bad virus, but if it infects a naive herd with no immunity, the losses are going to be
Catastrophic.
thousands of pigs per 1,000 sows, right? So we're talking about several, the losses are going to mount very rapidly compared to the same strain, but infecting a herd that it's immunized and it's already stable and with ongoing vaccination, then the losses may be half, maybe 80% of what the naive herd is. So it depends, right?
Always with PRRS,
depends.
right? It depends.
We're talking about averages.
Yeah, when we think we know something with PRRS, we get educated again. Yeah, for sure. Great, thank you for the answers. We'll go to the next one. It just changed. So what is the PRRS vaccination rate for piglets in leading swine-producing countries, and what are the primary reasons why piglet vaccination is considered essential? Marius, can you take a stab at this one? It's asking piglet vaccination rate in major countries. It varies, we know.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, piglet vaccination rate or piglet vaccination is essential if you want to protect the sows. So what we have seen in Europe, that it varies, but it is very much dependent on the PRRS challenge that is circulating in the countries. For example, the strains that I pulled up in the presentation at the very beginning, the Rosalia strain that is currently circulating in Spain, it's a highly pathogenic PRRS1 strain that has caused havoc in the Spanish swine industry, and as a result the vaccination rate in piglets really have increased because they have seen that without an appropriate protection in the piglets there is no way to control those highly pathogenic PRRS strains. So in countries where we have only very moderate PRRS strains circulating, piglet vaccination is less implemented, but as soon as there is a severe PRRS challenge in that country, we see a rapid rise in piglet vaccination because producers have understood that without an appropriate piglet vaccination, there is no way to control PRRS. The piglet vaccination rate usually in Asia as well as in the US and Canada is higher because they have more pathogenic PRRS strains circulating.
And I've realized the benefit of that vaccine.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you. And I think overall it's growing if I look at the picture. Yeah.
Yes, so the vaccination in sows has become a standard, and I assume that we are now in the process that we are understanding that the vaccination in piglets for PRRS will become a standard too, because there is no doubt a big benefit to it.
It may depend on the region too. Say Iowa, for example, Clayton, Marcelo, I think it's going to be hard to find a piglet that's not vaccinated, just because the pressure of infection is so high, nobody's going to dare not to vaccinate. You could argue when, dosing, timing, but pretty much every pig is going to get a vaccine there, right? Which is maybe different from Denmark, where you're moving to negative, so it depends on the region too.
Yeah.
It depends over time. You know, when I was a younger veterinarian, we didn't vaccinate the pigs. You know, it was the same situation where maybe you vaccinated the sows, but in the U.S., we sent a lot of pigs to Iowa without vaccine. Producers would say it doesn't work because they would see less clinical signs, but it wasn't a PCV2-like effect, you know? They would still see clinical illness, and they say, well, this doesn't work. So I would say, you know, if you're not vaccinating pigs today, you're not completely out in left field. Every region learns and every region evolves.
Yeah.
True.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. So next question. I've managed to block vertical transmission, and now I'm focusing in protecting nursery pigs. Would it make sense to vaccinate twice? Once at 1 week of age and again around weaning, 4 weeks in this situation? Some farmers have tried this and seen good results, but I'm curious about the rationale behind it. Who wants to take this one?
I'm curious about the rationale as well. But I think it's interesting. I think when you do a whole herd vaccination program and you are effective in blocking that vertical transmission, you are already like one step ahead, and you are doing the goal of the vaccination of the sow herd, which is to protect the piglet in the early life, right? So I wonder if that first vaccination that's being done on the first week of life is really necessary, or if the pigs could have like an excellent performance with just the vaccination at weaning. That's where I would go first, and then because you may save the money,
Sure.
and the labor cost to do that vaccine, and you know that one extra dose of vaccine, and then if you have basically similar results, then you know you do yourself that favor to.
And it could be that we have a diagnostic or monitoring confusion, right? Because if we're seeing early disease in nursery, to me that would immediately make me think, sows, what's going on in the sows, right? So maybe our processing fluids are negative, but we are circulating virus in the farrowing house, maybe?
Yeah.
That would be my suspicion, that something is not quite right still from the sow farm.
Yeah, I mean, we're making the assumption, we're making a lot of assumptions about the term vertical transmission. So it's a great point that if vertical transmission just means in utero transmission only, and you're only testing processing fluids, and you've got pigs that are weaned at 25, 26 days, the processing fluids alone are probably not enough to help you make that decision.
Yes.
You probably do need to do some wean pig testing to answer that question of what is truly the status at weaning, because that's the more informed, I think, way to make a decision on the 2-dose program.
Exactly.
The
But
guys
when-
we've seen doing that is also those, in addition to what you guys said, is situations where you have large nurseries, where you have either continuous flow or commingled flows, and you always have problems in the nursery. So that second dose may be of help to reduce, because you know that if you don't super immunize them, they're gonna keep seeing the wild type viruses in the nursery.
And it depends on the pathogen that we're talking about, right? Because PCV2 and PRRS would be.
Oh, I was thinking about PRRS.
Yeah,
We're assuming PRRS.
Yeah, I was thinking about PRRS.
Yeah, but it's true.
But it doesn't say PRRS, right? You're right. Depends.
With your example, Daniel, I think I would try a bubble depot. I would try to create even a sort of a room gap even between my heavily infected pigs and maybe these more healthy pigs. That may actually be, if you can, may actually be a quicker way to get that sorted out. Good.
But I like the thinking. I think it's a very good idea. So first of all, congratulations if they really block the vertical transmission from the sow farm, because this is the most important step. Yeah. And then check nursery, check weaning piglets, and if there is still an early PRRS circulation, then it absolutely makes sense to implement the vaccination at first week of life. When there is no early PRRS transmission, then you could move the vaccination time later. But I really like the concept and how the person was thinking about it.
I think that logic.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
That was your question, right, Marius?
Yes, exactly.
Very good. Again, remember, we have microphones. If you disagree with the esteemed panel or you have a follow-up question, please don't hesitate. every now and then look up and see if I can see hands up there. So we'll move to the next question. I understand that a 3-month quarantine period for gilts is better than 2 months. But how significant is the difference likely to be? Judging by the graph, it doesn't seem like there is much difference. Now, I would love to have Pehor to answer this question.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that actually. But I guess that question I heard that before, and you can actually also get that question on a lot of other aspects about PRRS control. This is just one minor thing where you can get the question, well, is it really necessary to do this? Because and then there's always some arguments why not to do it. And you can ask back, okay, how safe do you want to be? It's sort of a lottery. It's like, what is the chance of things going wrong? Maybe you're lucky, and then you can go and say, well, I did it only with 8 weeks of quarantine, but on average, you need the 12 weeks, and if you follow that recommendation, there is a higher chance that you will succeed. Then you can start doing your economics and discussing what is the cost of having a quarantine compared to failure of PRRS control. Start doing the calculations. And then maybe those 4 weeks is a cheap investment for gaining a large amount of money. So the answer is, well, yeah, maybe you will succeed, but the chances of you being successful is just lower. So, yeah.
And the prize, even outside of Denmark, the prize of producing a negative pig to finish is so fantastic. I think you did some numbers, $7-8, right, of better profit per pig if you can manage to have a negative pig at weaning. So the economics are pretty clear. Now, physically, you just may not you may have to build a new barn, right? But we talked about this in a previous meeting. Economically, you can make those numbers work, right?
Yep. When you get to the point where you have capital available to deploy, that's where you should deploy it.
Yeah. And the question you can also transfer to the 10 golden rules, the management rules. You always get the question, is it necessary in my farm to do all of the 10 rules? Could I just skip the thing with nurseries, or could I just leave some of these weaned pigs in the farrowing unit during the weekend because it's just more easy for me? It's the same type of question, and this answer will be the same. Well, you could try, but the success of elimination just goes down.
And Clayton talked about averages before, right? And here's the, if you look at the realities after 2 months of exposure, most of the gilts are not going to be shedding anymore, and it's going to be enough. But the problem is with those few ones that didn't read the book, and they are shedding for longer. Those few ones could be 5%, could be 3%, but if you have some shedding, then they're going to find the baby piglets in the herd, and those baby piglets are going to amplify the virus to the rest of the herd. So if you're not sure between 2 and 3, you could hang your ropes, right, Marcelo, and do some testing and really verify that they were immunized. You'll know because you vaccinated them, but now your diagnosis is going to verify that they're really not shedding anymore, anywhere between that 2 and 3 month mark.
Yeah. Very good. I think that's phenomenal. Pehor would be proud. So I think the next one we've already done. So I'll go to the third one down. Do you think cellular immunity plays an important role in PRRS infection? And can the vaccine sufficiently stimulate cell-mediated immunity? We need an immunologist in the room. So it's asking about the importance of CMI for PRRS as a virus. I think we would all say yes.
Yes.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Yes and
right?
yes.
So if anyone wants to elaborate, you feel confident in your immunology?
Well, I don't know that you have to be a super expert in immunology to answer that question. The pig doesn't lie, and we know that cellular immunity is a really important part of PRRS infection. Serum neutralizing antibodies are the only part of the humoral response that are important. Really, the bulk of it is cell-mediated immunity. So that's well understood. And can the vaccine sufficiently stimulate cellular immunity? Since we have seen the vaccine show cross-protection against numerous strains strains over years and geographies. I think the pig tells us yes, that if cellular immunity is important in the response and the vaccines are showing us they have some protection, that's how they're doing it.
Yeah. I couldn't answer better. I think one thing that is important, and it ties into something that many of the speakers have talked about with co-infections, is that to generate a solid cellular immune response, you need a pig that's got a healthy immune system. A pig that's suffering from PD or PCV2 or any other infection is more or less likely to give a good CMI response than a healthy one. So I think that's one important criteria. And the other thing that I remember from your chart, I think you had the chart on the timing of the immune response. One challenge with PRRS is that it's not a very quick immune response. There is a time before you have particularly, let's say, sterilizing or very solid immunity. So you're racing against time with vaccination and infection. And this is where biomanagement and all these ideas really help to reduce the load and give the pig a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Happy with the answer? Good. Let's see. Okay, I was waiting for another lineage 1 question, so here we go. Is there a correlation between the lineage 1 virus family expanding more rapidly compared to others and the use of lineage 1 vaccines? So I'm trying to read between the lines, but I think what the question, and please clarify if I'm getting it wrong, is that suggesting that if we use more lineage 1 vaccines, are we somehow increasing the diversity of lineage 1 strains or clades or variants? Marcelo, are you?
Well, the lineage 1 has been, at least in the US, the most predominant one for years now, like more than 10 years. And what has shifted is actually the sublineages, right? Predominantly, if you think about 5, 6 years ago, your lineage 1As, they were the more predominant, and today are your lineage 1Cs. So that has shifted, and I don't think that's necessarily due to introduction of any of the more recently available commercial vaccines into the market. Now, what was the driving force between that shift? Maybe just fitness of those new viruses that are emerging, right? We know that they have also been circulating for quite a long time, but it's just like, for whatever reason, at this moment, they were more fit to expand and spread in the industry.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because this is my feeling, and I just wonder, would live virus inoculation be a more likely pathway for increased diversity, right? If we are throwing virus or viruses into farms, are we potentially increasing recombination rate and therefore increasing the risk of genetic variability?
I think so, and maybe Daniel can speak better to that, but one of the things that is interesting about some of the research that Giovanni Trevisan, one of our colleagues there, is doing when he's investigating the use of LVI is that, one, there's a lot of variability on dosages and number of viral particles that are used, and that on itself can be a driving factor for how this is going to affect the pigs, both in terms of clinical disease and potentially driving some of that diversity. And then the other fact would be the number of viruses that are present in those LVIs, right? Which we've seen that there are cases that up to 3, maybe even more, right? 3 viruses in the same sample.
Right.
So,
and several viruses in the sample means more chance for recombination, and the pig is going to select, right, the survival of the fittest. The pig is going to select the virus that's more fit, which is the virus that replicates faster, which is the virus that kills more macrophages and causes more lesions, right?
Yeah.
So that all comes together. And with that study that Marcelo is talking about, shows that LVI has multiple PRRS viruses, yes, but it also has multiple stuff too, right, Marcelo? From PCV2, PCV3, Parvo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, Seneca, stuff that you don't read, sapoviruses, stuff that you don't necessarily want to be deliberately infecting all the cells with. And those co-infections may also help PRRS to further replicate, right, and further spread and evolve.
And particularly here in Asia, where we still have countries that have endemic Ojeski or classical swine fever, I think it's even more risky in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Any further comments on the question? No? Good. We'll keep going. Again, keep the questions coming. PCV2D is becoming more evident in our recent laboratory results. I am worried the vaccine I use is not effective anymore. Should I consider a product that is more protective to PCV2D or vaccine that contains a PCV2D antigen?
Yeah, I think two parts, right? I think one, all that evidence that I showed earlier shows that the PCV2A vaccine is able to offer cross protection against PCV2D and other genotypes. So, that's one thing. We should be, and if you're seeing more PCV2D or more PCV2D confirmed disease cases, one thing that should be investigated, you should go through this 5-step process to really understand what are maybe the root causes of the increased number of cases of PCV2D that are being observed. Now, there are options of PCV2D vaccines today, and I think there is, if there is a possibility of using a product that has a PCV2D genotype in it, that I think that's also a valuable opportunity to take and understand if that would be a better fit for your system, right? So. I think having options in that sense, it's a good thing.
Okay. Any further comments from the panel?
I think as a general rule of thumb, as I read the question, should I consider a product that is more protective to PCV2D? If you find a product that is most protective against the strain you think you're going to get for any pathogen, you should use that one. Mm-hmm. Shifting to PCV2D antigen vaccine is a different question. If there's evidence that shows it's more protective than your current product, then sure. But I would want to see that evidence. We talked a lot about PRRS and cross protection, and homology doesn't predict that for us. There's a lot of things that go into a vaccine. So just switching to a 2D because it's available, I think that's it's a strategy that doesn't have a lot of evidence to support it. But if you have good research data that shows you've got a better vaccine against the most common genotype of PCV2 you're dealing with, then that's the time to make a switch.
The other consideration is that while D is by far the most prevalent in most countries, A and B have not gone away, right? You still find them at Iowa State. I can't remember the rate, but we don't have a mono genotype. It's often multiple.
PCV2A would be the second one most prevalent or most detected in our lab. Mm-hmm. And one thing that's interesting is that we see that it tends to be system specific. Yep. So most systems have a more PCV2D detection, but a lot of systems, they really only find PCV2A. Or 90% of the time they are dealing with PCV2A. So it's important to get down to that level of investigation to see what you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have enough problems. My say practitioner hat would say, the Americans would say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think when we have so many different challenges, I would consider what is my top priority? If you are genuinely seeing PCV-AD and you go through the 5-step, maybe one of the solutions is to adopt this, but I wouldn't do it just just because a new one is on the market. And by the way, we have an AED vaccine in the United States, so I'm not speaking from two sides of my mouth.
Why do you have it, right? Like, I mean, you're going to continue to investigate what vaccines protect the pig the best, and you're going to produce the ones that protect the pig the best.
That is our objective.
It's best for Boehringer business. It's best for our business. I mean, it's best for everybody. That's the way we should do business.
Yep. Okay. So back to our least favorite virus, PCV3. Can PCV3 be an exacerbating factor in PRDC, in porcine respiratory disease complex? Any scientific evidences?
Could it be? Yes. Do we have any evidence? No. That's the short one. Like we were talking earlier, right? There have been a few studies that try to reproduce PCV3 disease, and in a few of those studies, the researchers have been able to reproduce lesions of PCV3, histologic lesions, but no clinical signs. There haven't been any studies today that have reproduced clinical signs that would be associated with PCV3 disease. So that's like a missing puzzle with PCV3. There's no evidence that it's causing any of those clinical signs that I showed here earlier. And even those PCV3, those pigs that had lesions of PCV3 in the studies that were able to reproduce that, when they compared the performance of those pigs against those pigs that were negative controls, the performance was about the same. So, it's hard to make a compelling argument with the evidence that we have today that PCV3 is causing a true problem in, either in PRDC or something else.
So Marcelo, is it fair to say, does it cause problems? Well, it can, because it has been reported, and there are evidences of pigs with disease with PCV3, but not 2. But if you look at the cases that come through the lab, it's not going to be our top 10 or top 20 disease to worry about in terms of control and immunization and flow and everything, right?
No, and Clayton can speak to more about that, but I don't think in the US PCV3 is a concern today. It's not top of mind disease to be in your differential list for most things, maybe for reproductive disease. If you rolled out your PRRS, your PCV2, your parvovirus, other differentials, but it's not going to be the first thing that you're going to look for. And it's not to say that PCV3 is never going to be recognized as a pathogen, right? This is early days of research. Maybe there's a cofactor that's needed that we just don't know about that's going to allow it to express a little bit better. What we don't know today is if that's really, if a cofactor is needed, and if it is, what that would be, right?
Completely agree. For PRDC specifically, I can't think of any evidence. For reproductive disease, okay, like it's on the differential list, but it's down there. Mm-hmm. For PRDC, I certainly haven't ever had a case where I've sent it into the lab and we had PRDC and PCV3 was identified in the case. And I don't know, talking to any veterinarians, that I've heard of that one specifically. It'd be like at the bottom of the differential list. If you're concerned, right, you went through the diagnostics, in situ hybridization, PCR. I think we get good tools to investigate it if it's a concern, but I have never had that one for PRDC specifically. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next one. With the 5-step protocol, I guess processing fluid should be checked at least 12 weeks. Is this based on the same reasoning or rationale as the argument that gilt quarantine period should be 12 weeks? Based on the viral shedding period?
Well, that's a good question, I believe. I will try to start the answer, and I guess somebody could supplement. The reason why we're using the 12 weeks is just saying, well, you could actually do it early on, but you're probably going to have positive samples, and just wasting money on diagnostic that doesn't matter. What you want to do with the processing fluids, and at least the way we're doing it, is to check for disease of the the vertical transmission. So, and you cannot prove that before you have the negative samples. And actually, we don't really distinguish between wild type and virus vaccine type. So we're just going for the positive PCR. So we recommend waiting. And then when you have a negative sample, then you can say, well, we don't have this vertical transmission anymore, and you can start adding up, having these 4 weeks of four rounds of samples being negative until you move on for the next step. So, but of course, it's the same rationale, because you vaccinated all your sows, and they will shred virus or vaccine strain into the farrowing unit for a period of time. So I guess it's the same rationale.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon to find 6, 7, 8 consecutive negative results followed by a positive one, right? It's. I'm not gonna say it's the most common thing, but it's not rare. We see that all the time. When you reach those 12 consecutive weeks, the chances are that they're gonna be stable for good. Have we seen 20 cases, 30 cases, Marcelo, of negative results followed by a positive one? That can happen, but it's more a rare thing. With the 12 weeks, it's a good rule of thumb where you're going to be right over 95% or more of the time.
Agreed.
Agreed. Marius? Okay. Good. So use the logic and follow the program. Thank you. So we have now a follow-up question, I think. What is the expectation of MLV vaccination in the Danish reduction strategy?
The expectations, I have to interpret that question.
What do you hope to
well,
achieve?
Well, it is formulated that we should reduce them, and of course, if we're going to go for elimination at national level, we will cease the use of MLV vaccines, because we cannot use it because it's a serological status that we have. So we don't really matter if those antibodies is derived from a vaccine or for a wild type. We cannot have any antibodies at all. So we need to cease the use of MLV vaccines. But on our way to achieving that, we are using the MLV vaccines. We're using them for stabilizing the sow herds. We're using them with the recommendation, as I mentioned, and we're using them for mass vaccination of sows, immunizing the gills, and sometimes also doing the piglet vaccination when it's necessary. But we're doing it for control and preparing for elimination. So we're not afraid of using them, but we're just using them more strategically and actively in the most intelligent way, I used to say.
So, Nicola, you would use them in order to achieve stability in the sows. And once you have achieved stability, you will stop vaccination because you eliminate the virus, right? Okay.
And that's where your sentinels are very important, right? To make sure that circulation is really, truly stable.
Yeah, but again, we are living, that's the risky part, and we have to, we're not doing it like blindly. We're always trying to look into the area and making sure that these sow herds are safe, that we know what's going on in the neighborhood, so we don't have any experience like the one that Clayton has described, because then whoever told that farmer to go naive and negative, they're gonna be very mad at him. So you have to do it by having control of your neighborhood before you go for a naive sow herd.
We have that experience with pseudorabies, with Ojeski's disease, right? At some point in your control program, you have to say, okay, guys, now we have to go without the safety net.
On the sentinels, Nikolai, are there producers that are specifically entering, say it's not even gilts, say it's, a high health animal, but 20 market pigs that are 20 kilos from marketing weight and kind of running them around the farm? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Are there anybody doing it that way, or are they just putting in gilts and letting them flow?
Well, some of them are doing it before the official sentinel
canary in the coal mine.
Just to making sure that we are on the right side of the elimination, and they can do stuff like that for safety.
I think that's smart.
Yeah.
And if they test them early, and if they test positive, get them out of there.
Yeah.
But if you put in a big batch of gilts, you may not want to get them out of there.
Yeah, true. True.
Good point. Good point. Excellent. Let's keep going. We're running out of time. I don't think we'll be able to get all questions, but this one is, in terms of test sensitivity, what is the appropriate number of samples to be pooled for processing fluids, for family oral fluids or tongue tip, monitoring. Nikolai said processing fluids should be up to 20 liters per pool. Remember, he has type 1 virus mostly, or in many places. Does that mean the test can detect a single positive sample, even if it's the only positive one in a 20-liter pool?
Well, thanks for that question. I'm really hoping that we could answer this one here, because sitting in the panel with these guys, it's very interesting, because what we're doing in Denmark, we came from a situation where we were used to just doing serum samples and testing on individuals, and actually being a bit afraid of doing the pooling. But now we have to do a lot of testing, and we have to move on, and now we start learning using these new types of samples, the aggregated samples, and start listening to Daniel and his group, learning pooling is all right. and then all the veterinarians need to get confidence about it. And we did some testing actually with the pooling of these processing fluids, and we can detect if there is a single liter positive in pools of up to 20 liters. Of course, if you want to be more sure, we also recommend that you go down in the sample size, but it's all right with the 20 liters. And actually, it's sort of some of the work you guys have been doing. We are leaning us and using your experience to develop our recommendations. So.
20 liters in Denmark is about 6,000 pigs, right?
That's it.
Well, it's only the males.
But pooling, pooling in processing fluids in a lot of the sample types is also how much can you do? It depends answer, right? So like the closer you are to the outbreak, the more aggressive you can be in the pooling. And then as the prevalence starts to get lower, then you gotta start to think about that number and be a little bit less aggressive if you want to increase your chances of finding the virus, right? Especially if you're just thinking about finding that one pig that's positive in thousands. So then you gotta be a little bit less aggressive.
Depends, right? I mean, like, what's your diagnostic? What's your question? What's your question? If you're thinking about bringing naive gilts into the herd, don't pool 400 liters. You know what I'm saying? If this is the first time you're testing after an outbreak, pool as many liters as you want to. You're not making a huge decision off of that.
Yeah. And then just another point is the PCR testing in Denmark is like 3 times higher cost than in the US, I believe. So it's a matter of money as well. You have a certain amount of money allowed to use in the farms. The farmer will not pay for everything you want. So you need to do it the best way. And I believe we need to pool some of these samples to get the most out of your money.
Everybody's got a budget.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. And here's where repetition, right? You're doing it every week, so you're increasing your chances of detecting something just by repeating the sample.
Right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, guys, I'm very sad to say that we're having so much fun because our time is up. So we still had some pending questions. Thank you.
I'm not leaving.
You're not leaving? Okay. Bring the food here.
Yeah.
One day we'll do that.
But we have good news for you. You just have to come back next year for the perspective. Then we're going to answer the 20 questions remaining.
We'll put them in the jukebox.
There you go.
Brilliant. Well, I really can't leave the stage without one more thing. My colleague Marius will help me out here. We want to thank our fantastic panel of speakers. I enjoy your presentations, your interaction, the discussions. It's fantastic. And as a small token of appreciation, we have a gift for our speakers. And the audience, if you could please, traditional thank you.